outlook. Does the ethos of the Big Ten look differently today than it did yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's a different conference. As I said, on the podium, it's coast to coast. Whoever would have ever dreamt that, envisioned it. But, at the end of the day, we're playing 12 games, and that's kind of how I've got a way of just kind of like bringing everything to the simplest form. And, we played 12 games a long time ago. We're still playing 12, and the more we win, better it's going to be. But, yeah, there are some unique challenges that get presented, now because of the change. But, you got to deal with them.
I guess I wanted to ask you about, kind of along the lines of NIL, but also the new, what's going to happen out of the House settlement, the payments for the players. What's been kind of the directive, or what do you know as far as what percentage football players will receive out of that? Because there's kind of two veins right now, probably won't be settled except in court, whether it's NIL or Title IX based or it's marketability based. What are you aware of?
Yeah, so no, you probably, Scott, know more than I do, quite frankly. But I think that the key takeaway there, whether you look back and figure out what it has to be, or as we look forward, what it's going to be. Both cases right now, from what I can tell, are an open book. And it's not that I won't pay attention in the next 5 months, but, my focus is going to be on our team. And as I said earlier, I feel pretty good about, like where we're at between now and January. After that, it's a jump ball. So I'll take in what I need to know, or if I decide I need to know. But I think until we get a little bit more clarity on a national, or at least a conference basis, there's really not a lot of reasons to burn too many brain cells on it and let somebody else do that. And, our input's not going to be that important anyway, but whatever the ground rules end up being, the sooner we know those, the better, and then we will start strategizing how are we going to maneuver, how are we going to make it work best for us.
Health-wise?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, it's like, wow, you know way more than I do right now. I'm not looking back at all. But somebody brought it up the other day. I can't remember who it was. But anyway.
Health-wise, is everybody kind
of I think we're pretty good. Yeah, I mean, you have some soft tissue stuff in the summer. But nothing I'm expecting to be a big challenge next week. And then probably, I think Cohen's the only guy with a major surgery, right, that bled into the summer. He's I don't know when he's going to be ready, but he's doing really well. So, but he hasn't played football, and he hasn't, been out doing football stuff, so, and he hasn't been cleared. So he's got to get cleared, and he's got to get confidence and all that. But the good news is some guys are fast healers, some aren't. He's on the fast healer list.
Regarding the quarterback situation, like you said, Cade is your presumed number one. I guess, how are you approaching that going into camp? Are you telling Brendan or not just Brendan, but both of them, it's a competition? And then, what was that conversation like with Brendan and Cade when you brought him in?
Yeah, I didn't even have a conversation with Cade. I shouldn't assume things, but I am assuming things. I don't think Cade's worried. I think he's worried about getting healthy and playing. The difference is of the three guys that we're looking at, Cade's got an impressive resume. He's done it successfully, and directed his team to wins, which is what the quarterback's supposed to do. At least that's his number one challenge. So I don't think he's looking in the rearview mirror. I think he's just looking straight ahead. And I'd encourage all three guys to do that. The challenge for Cade is to be healthy, which, again, this is not 1982, so there's no reason to think he won't be. And then he's got to get back in the swing of things. He's missed significant time. But that's easier if you've played and played well. So getting him back to where he can play is going to be, priority one. Brandon's got a lot to learn. He's the newest of the group. You could say that about Marco and Cade. I mean, back in February, it was all new to both those guys, all of us. So, but he's been around, and I expect him to be a better player than he was last time we saw him. And then, anxious to see how Brendan fits in. But it's a good room. All three of those guys are great guys, and they're competitive guys, and they're all going to compete, and that's good for our football team. And it's going to be that way to reposition. They'll all hear that from you next Tuesday night. There's no incumbents. There's no incumbents.
Just talking to some of the opposing players, they all point out the pink lockers, that they're still there.
They're still there. I mean, I want to go on record. We have one of the nicest visiting locker rooms. I wish all the visiting locker rooms are that nice. We have nice locker rooms. I don't know how many showers we have at work. That ought to be a league rule that you ought to have at least one shower that has full throttle. That's pipe dream. So nobody should complain. I mean, we got one of the nicest. It's very spacious.
Kirk, is Aiden Hall still with you guys?
No, Aiden has decided he's not going to play anymore. So hopefully he's going to stay in school. I think he's still trying to figure that out.
Any other players that you see stepping away?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't anticipate. We'll see.
On the depth chart today, a couple of things stood out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bo Stevens is the number one left guard. Do you feel like he's the front runner at this point there?
We'll see. I said earlier, we had, in my mind, we might have 7 guys that are capable of starting, which would be great. I hope that's a true statement 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now. And then next thing is, what are the best pieces and where do they fit best? And, Nick's obviously a swing guy. He has started at tackle and guard. This spring he worked exclusively tackle because, we had dunk out. So I think we got some flexibility. And we'd like to try to figure that out as soon as possible. But the good news is I think we've got some flexibility, and we'll just figure out who's playing the best and get them in there. But yeah, I wouldn't want to handicap it right now.
Yeah, top of the depth chart receiver too is interesting because you have Dewey, who's never played before, and then Seth Anderson, who's been hurt a lot.
He's been hurt. Yeah.
So I mean, is that a reflection of concern at receiver, or is that like, oh yeah, I don't really like these guys?
I actually have a good feeling about the room right now. But it's got to play. I think Jared's going to be a really good player for us. But we don't have a lot of production in that room. That's obvious. So, but the opportunity is there for him. Hopefully, we can protect the quarterback and we deliver the ball. And those guys have to get open and make catches and tough catches. But I think we've got probably a group of 6, 7, 8 guys. I wouldn't want to predict who's going to do what, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do, how they emerge, who doesn't, and who does emerge. And the good news is we've moved the ball and scored without having an NFL receiver. And if we can develop an NFL receiver, that'd be great. But it's not requisite to being successful. Go back to I don't know how many NFL guys we had then, but so it's a matter of just putting the pieces together and everybody doing their jobs. But I like the way the guys have worked. I like the progress we saw in the spring. But that being said, we got a long way to go.
Also on the depth chart, John Nestor with that first team spot. What have you seen from him, and where do you see that kind of competition standing right now?
It's not necessarily like the line, but it's kind of like the line. We got good competition at corner right now, and the good news there is we weren't sure what we had at the start of spring practice. So now that we've gone through spring, I think we all feel pretty good about John as a football player. And it's going to be a good competitive room. Deshaun, obviously, Jamari. So TJ had a really good spring. So all of a sudden, I think we've got some competition, whereas we were worried, do we have any depth? And I think we've got a chance.
Kirk, everybody starts out, you've got to win your division in order to get where you want to be.
Right.
And
It used to be that way.
Yeah. Stylistically, the Big Ten West had it was line of scrimmage, very physical, because you had beat you or Wisconsin. That was kind of the hallmark. That's no longer the case because it's an 18-team division, basically. Right. Has that changed any kind of thought process, way to attack, way to recruit, anything, because you're now an 18-team conference as opposed to a 17 division?
Yeah, not really. I think the logistics of the play, the travel, those kinds of things are probably more impactful and important. I don't think it's really going to impact what we're thinking. We'll play the way we think is best for us to play. It gives us the best advantage of winning. And, all 3 phases are connected that way. And, other people do it the other way. And I made the example earlier, there's a reason Bob hired Mike Leach to go to Oklahoma. He played against them, Kentucky maybe wasn't on the same level as some teams they competed with. That was a way for them to get to that level. Bob felt like it was going to be best for his program at Oklahoma. And, that's a good offensive system. It's certainly worked well at Texas Tech for Coach Leach, and who I think is one of the best coaches in the last 20-some years. But, I guess my point there is it depends on where you're at and what can work for you and, what you have access to. So, I don't think it's more about the execution, having players who can do what you hope to do.
Thoughts on your depth on the defensive line right now?
Yeah, that's a key focus going into preseason here, and on both lines, really interesting to see what are the guys that we don't know. We know who has starting experience and who's capable. How about the guys that we don't know about? So that's going to be a really big interest area, I think, for all of us as we go through August. Who are going to be those guys on the defensive line that are going to, we've been able to play 7, 8 guys at times, and we can't do that right as I stand here right now. Same thing on offense. I mentioned we might have 7 guys we can start. After that, I'm not sure who's who and what's what, so we got to find that out. Saw a lot of encouraging things, but we got to bridge that gap fast.
It kind of appears that defensive end looks solid, whereas the tackle is more of a question mark. Would you agree with that?
Yes and no. I mean, the potential's there, I think, in all 4 spots. But we haven't seen enough yet to say, okay, so-and-so's going to get 20 snaps this game. Not at that point.
Thought like putting Brian Allen that close to playing.
Yeah, but we're not exactly deep at end either, so it's. I think we got the guys in the right spots, and I don't know how much 2 positionals type stuff we'll do with the guys that are backups. Maybe some of the starters, but not the backups. Keontae's done yet. No big deal.
Has it been like, I don't know, different or whatever without Brian? It's a totally different transition, not having him around 12 years. How have you adjusted, I guess, to not having him around?
Life goes on. Robert Frost said that. I quote him a lot, and I added to it, life comes at you. So, life comes at you, you deal with it, and then life goes on. My focus for him right now is just to hope things really go well for him this season. There's reason to think they will, and certainly wish him the best on a couple levels. And then, as far as it pertains to us, life has gone on, and we're full speed ahead. And that's the way you have to be. I don't want to sound callous, but it's just it's how it has to be. We all have to go out with our lives.
What's kind of stood out to you with Abdul? I think this is not going to be his 3rd year on staff. Kind of what has he added to the staff?
I just am so impressed with what I always was as a player, and I've told the story before. The first time I saw him in the practice field, he was one of those guys that, within a short amount of time, I'll make this guy's better than I thought he was. When he got here, because you're not always 100% sure, but he from there just kept getting better. So he's one of the best players we've had. Not when I say player, not just a producer on the field, but the kind of person, leader, all those kinds of things. And I see the same attributes transition or correlate with his coaching. He cares about the right things. He cares about, first and foremost, the people he works with, starting with our players. Great staff member. He is a believer. Not that we're trying to brainwash people, but there are certain things we believe in the program, and he's on board 100%. And he's a really good football coach. He's extremely inquisitive. He has good observations, and he asks questions that are really good. He's made that adjustment, which